How to stop selling your time for money and get more of what you want out of life starting right now. What's up, everyone? James Jernigan here, and today I want to share with you some simple concepts that changed my life forever. So this video is going to be a little bit different than my usual content. Normally I make technical tutorials about software or different strategies for making money online. So this video is going to be kind of like that, only this is more a tutorial on how to get better results from your mind, how to think better, and again, get more of what you want out of life and do less of what you don't want to do. So I have some sources at the end from where a lot of this information came from, where I learned this stuff. But I want to hear from you. Let me know if this video helps, if you like this type of content, and by the same token, if you hate this video, if you think it's stupid or it's a load of BS, I want to hear that too. Because the more feedback I get from you, the better content I can make. So let's just jump right into it. The first concept that really helped change things for me is understanding that your time here is limited, but money is not. So, in other words, you can never get spent time back. You have a limited time on Earth. You don't know exactly how long it's going to be, but one day you won't be here anymore. On the other hand, money can always be replaced. This is kind of a foundational concept that's going to introduce the rest of the topics in this video. So, with that said, saving money is counterproductive because of inflation. I know that's contradictory to most advice you've ever heard, but if you look at the rate of inflation, every day that you save a dollar, that dollar is worth less. So the longer you save it, the less money you ultimately have. Very powerful concept. And the other side of that coin is that spending money can actually accelerate your growth. So I've never heard an old person say that they spent more time working. So that's why I want to show you how to stop selling your time for money, in other words, working for an hourly wage, and instead find other ways to multiply your money. So I want to start by talking about the subconscious effect of your environment. This is something that took me a long time to figure out. And what I'm talking about is the mindset of scarcity versus the mindset of abundance. So I have a few questions that are going to help get this concept across clearly, I hope. So first of all, does your environment inspire you or does it tire you? Why do rich people usually live and work in extravagant places? And the other side of that is, why is the hood filled with trash and drug addicts? Could it be that people are inspired by their environment, either positively or negatively? So your mind doesn't function properly when it's preoccupied with negativity. Things like fear, doubt, frustration, anger, despair. It's really hard to be happy when you have all this other stuff going on, all these negative emotions, and it's really hard to do a good job, say at work or in your relationships or with your goals, again, when you're living in this mindset of scarcity, of fear, of doubt, frustration, anger, and despair. So ultimately, you are the sum of your experiences. So I want to ask you, are the majority of your experiences good or are they bad? So I'm not trying to get any specific response out of you. I just want you to think about this stuff. And I want to remind you that you have the power to change your surroundings. If your surroundings tire you instead of inspire you, if your surroundings make you live in fear or doubt or frustration or anger or despair, you can change it. And the reason I bring this up is because I have first-hand experience with this. I spent I think 11 years living in Baltimore City, in the hood. Would hear gunshots just about every day. One night I actually woke up to gunshots right outside my house and saw a man with multiple gunshot wounds bleeding, begging for us to call some help for him. So obviously we did. But when you're in that kind of environment, when every time you leave the house you're worried about getting mugged or seeing crime happen or whatever, it's very hard to focus on productivity and positivity. And so what changed that was I took control and changed my surroundings. My fiance and I bought a 35-foot school bus, converted it into an off-grid RV, and for the past year, we've been traveling around the country doing exactly what we want, when we want, where we want. And that's a drastic comparison to the 10 years I spent in the hood in Baltimore City, hearing gunshots every day, seeing crime every day. It's a drastic difference, and uh, I really feel like my brain has become more powerful by putting myself in environments that inspire me, places out in nature, new cities, stuff like that. So, the next thing I want to talk about is mindset. Does it really matter? Or is it just some cheesy abstract concept that gurus like to talk about? This was something that took me a while to wrap my head around. For the longest time, I thought all the mindset stuff was kind of woo-woo and that everything was about taking action, and it didn't really matter how you think. But I want to ask you a few more questions. Are you more pleasant to be around when you are angry or when you're happy? Have you ever been affected by someone else's mood? You know, been around somebody negative or somebody complaining and it just brought you down and made it kind of hard for you to concentrate, or maybe made your mood worse? So, with that said, are people more likely to associate with you if you're positive or if you're negative? Do you believe that resources and money are scarce, or do you believe they're abundant? Would you act differently if you discovered there was no limit? Is there a limit? I'd argue that with things like space travel, mobile internet, nuclear energy, first generation billionaires, etc., that there really is no limit. And if there is, we haven't found it yet because, again, people are building rockets and flying them to space. In my lifetime, I've gone from having a dial-up connection, well, when I was really young, we had no internet. We literally had a phone that was connected to the wall with a wire, and that wire went all the way to whoever you were talking to on the other end of the phone. Literally a wire connected from your hand all the way to their hand. And now I have a phone I can carry around pretty much all over the entire continent and connect to the internet and millions of other people. And I think that this kind of stuff, space travel, mobile internet, nuclear energy, whatever, like, advancements in technology come from people who believe that there is no limit. These advancements and these great things, in my opinion, definitely do not come from negative people with a scarcity mindset. And that was something I just couldn't ignore. No matter how much I wanted to think the mindset stuff was uh, kind of cheesy, I just could not ignore that some people are doing really absolutely incredible things while others are just living in this cycle of frustration. So the next thing that I want to cover here is that change is not possible until you admit that there is a problem that needs to be fixed. So I'll ask you, are you happy working 5 out of 7 days per week during the prime of your life? I know I wasn't. I worked hourly jobs and a couple salary jobs for many years, and I just always felt like there was something more, but I couldn't really figure out how to access it, which again is why I'm making this video, not trying to tell you to think any certain way. Like I said, if you think this is all BS, let me know in the comments. But it took me kind of a long time to figure this stuff out, so I'm hoping to break it down in a simpler way so that you don't have to read the dozens of books dozens of times that I did. And by the way, I will link them at the end, so if you want to learn more about what I'm talking about here, I'll show you exactly where to do that. But let's continue. So my next question is, if you aren't happy, is that healthy? I'd argue it isn't. Again, going back to the positivity versus negativity, if you're living in a negative mindset, it's really hard to be positive about anything else if you're always feeling down. So, have you ever dreamed of an alternate life? One where you got paid really well for doing something you actually love? Have you seen other people living fabulous lives and becoming wealthy doing what you want to do? So, I want to ask you, is that other life you've dreamed about actually possible? Most people block this out subconsciously because they have been conditioned to believe that debt slavery is normal. In other words, working an hourly job, punching the clock. Um, we've been conditioned to believe that's normal. In other words, people have been tricked into thinking they owe someone else their time, that they have to pay for their existence here on Earth. Everyone has to, right? Wrong. This is a very hard thing to accept, but I promise you, the reason you feel stuck is ignorance. Your mind has been manipulated by the most powerful psychological tools ever to exist: television, social media, etc. These these medias are literally designed to be addictive and to manipulate you. So don't worry, it's not your fault. And that's again why I'm making this video, to try and help you overcome some of these manipulations that have led to false beliefs. And what that does is keep you in a state of scarcity and panic, which keeps you working hard for the man. Successful people, on the other hand, from my experience, from what I've observed, live in a mindset of abundance. They don't sell their time for money. So what exactly do they do differently? Here are some examples of things that I've noticed. Successful people, rich people, wealthy people leverage assets to produce more income. For example, real estate is a source of passive income. You buy the property one time, you buy a piece of real estate, whether it's a house or an apartment building, and then people pay you rent every single month for essentially doing nothing. I mean, you're going to have to hire a manager to like fix the plumbing and, a leaky roof or what every once in a while, whatever it is. But basically that income is passive. So wealthy people try to leverage assets to produce more income. I've also noticed that most wealthy people treat all relationships as business or growth opportunities. Their friends, their family, their coworkers, the people they run into at the coffee shop, their waiter or waitress, the valet, they're literally talking to everybody about opportunity, about growth, about making new deals or meeting new people, networking, right? They never turn it off. I've also noticed that successful people tend to produce instead of consume. Things like social media, fast food, fashion, jewelry, right? Who consumes these things? Generally, poor and middle class people consume social media, whereas wealthy and successful people, from my experience, spend more time producing social media because they want to grow their reach. They don't want to consume other people's content as much as they want people to see their content. Same with fast food. Generally, it's, you know, poor to middle class people who eat fast food, whereas it's the wealthy people who own the franchises and sell the fast food. So again, they're producing this. Some people are producing it, others are consuming. Again, with fashion, some wealthy people are really into fashion, but from my experience, they tend to do more of the selling and the marketing of fashion and the profiting from it, whereas it's more the middle class people who want to look like they have more money than they do, who are really obsessed with this kind of stuff. Same with jewelry, right? When you look at people like Elon Musk or Mark Zuckerberg or Mark Cuban, any of these people who have a ton of money and are known for business, look at the jewelry they wear versus look at rappers on TV or rock stars who tend to load up on the extravagant jewelry. They want to look rich, even though maybe they're making $250,000, $500,000 a year, right? So not super wealthy, but they want to look it. So that's the difference between producing and consuming. And I've noticed that most successful, wealthy people tend to produce more than they consume. Another thing that I've seen a lot of wealthy people, successful people doing is selling digital products for the simple fact that they can scale infinitely, right? There's no limit to the amount of time somebody can download a file, right? You could sell that same file. You could create a file once and sell it a million times or 5 million times, 100 million times, right? And it doesn't cost you any more. So another example of that is SaaS, or software as a service. So people pay every single month for a service that software does. Again, not selling your time for money, you're selling software for money. And again, this can scale infinitely because all that you're doing is creating a new account every time someone pays. And most likely you're not even doing that. Automation is. So people pay, they pay you every single month for something that software is doing while you're out living your life. Another thing I've noticed that successful people do and are maybe borderline obsessed with is creating time. Now, how can you create time? Well, things like hiring staff, buying a private jet, high-ticket consulting, and these second two, private jets and high-ticket consulting, are things that wealthy people, successful people, take an awful lot of flack from poor people, but I think it's because they don't understand. They think a private jet is wasteful. They think it's just burning a bunch of fuel so that they can just go lounge around and do whatever they want. But if we go back to this one, treat all relationships as business or growth opportunities, I believe that most people who own private jets have them because it allows them to do business faster. It allows them to create time. Instead of spending 3 hours at the airport and then another 6 hours on the plane and then having to go get a rental car or whatever, they can just take 5 minutes to walk into the airport, get on their jet, fly directly to their destination, and instead of taking 3/4 of a day, it takes them 2 or 3 hours. So to me, that is a way of creating time. And the same with high-ticket consulting, right? You could go learn everything on YouTube for free, and it might take you a month. Or you could pay somebody who really knows what they're doing $10,000, $100,000 for an hour of their time, and you can really speed up your learning curve. So again, that's creating time for yourself using money. Another thing I've noticed that most successful people do is read and learn perpetually. And the reason for that is knowledge and skills cannot depreciate. Pretty much every other asset you can have, whether it's a car, a house, a bank account, cash under your mattress, fine art, whatever it is, those things can depreciate, whereas knowledge and skills can't. Nobody can take them away from you, and in fact, they get better over time because the more you learn, the more powerful that knowledge becomes, the more stuff you can do with it. And I've noticed that successful people never stop reading and learning. Which is really easy to do, right? It's easy to just get sucked into YouTube videos or watch a TikTok and just completely wasting your time, the same time that other people are using to learn and become smarter. So it really just boils down to a choice. Are you living in a mindset of scarcity, or are you living in a mindset of abundance? I've noticed that successful people tend to surround themselves with other powerful people. In other words, they're trying to level up. Most successful people I know don't spend a ton of time going and hanging out with people who are bums. It's not to say that you have to completely disassociate with with less successful people, but if you want to become more successful, you want to spend more time around people who are better than you at whatever it is you're trying to learn. Now, one of the last things, and this is again another kind of weird one, at least it was to me, is that successful people tend to overspend to have the best whatever it is possible. And because mindset matters. So for example, if we put car in here, overspend to have the best car possible. Why do rich people drive Lamborghinis? Why do they get driven around in Bentleys? I believe that it's because when they walk out and get into the best car possible, it makes them feel like $1,000,000. It makes them feel like a champion. And again, it's scarcity or abundance. So having that great car or that great jet or that great house is going to level up this person's mindset and make them happier, which is ultimately going to make them more productive, even if they have to overspend. And they're happy to overspend because they understand that money is abundant, not scarce. It can be replaced, and their time on earth can't. So why waste it driving around in a car that they don't love when they could overspend and have the best? I'm not saying you have to do that. I'm just saying it's something I've noticed, and I wanted to pass it along to you. So, you probably can't change your situation instantly, but you can start fixing your mind right now. So, here's some of the ways that help me do that. First of all, the very first step is to take responsibility for where you are, because only your actions caused it. No one else is responsible. Where you are right now in life is the culmination of all of the decisions you've made in the past. So if you don't like where you are, the first step is to admit that and realize that you have to start taking different actions than you've taken in the past. Only you have the power to change your future. Nobody else will do it for you. In all my life's experience, I've never seen somebody just walk up and hand somebody $1 million for no reason, uh, just to be nice, right? The people who get millions of dollars usually produce something of value for other people. So another thing that you could do that helped me is to rewrite your goals daily as soon as you wake up. That's going to do a couple things. First of all, it's going to remind you of what it is that you want out of life. And by doing that first thing in the morning, it's going to train your brain to stay focused on what you want. So, another thing I found helpful is to find a way to get hyped every morning. Even if life totally sucks, the first thing you want to do when you wake up in the morning is get pumped up, get excited, put on a smile, because it's going to help you have a better day no matter what is in store. Another thing I can recommend is better your environment as soon as possible by any means necessary. This took me way too long. Like I said, I lived in Baltimore in the hood for like 11 years, and when I first moved there, it was right after college, and I just moved there because for a few reasons. One, the cost of living was extremely low. It was very cheap to live there. I had a lot of friends in the area, and I was working in the concert industry, so being in the city just made it easier to get to work. I was able to work more often, make more money while spending less on my living expenses. But what I didn't realize was the toll that living in such a high crime area would take on me. When I first moved there, I was like, crime, I'm not a criminal. I just won't get near those people doing bad stuff. It won't bother me. But day in and day out, seeing people get beat up, seeing houses getting broken into, seeing people get shot at, seeing people shoot at other people, seeing people pull knives and fight in the street, and prostitution and just all kinds of craziness really made it hard to focus on my goals and becoming a better person, because I was spending so much time worried about how am I going to get to the store without getting mugged, or whatever it was. So another thing you can do, even though you can't completely change your situation right now, is you could start only spending money on assets. So what that means is if it doesn't make you more money, don't buy it. That's going to be one of the fastest ways to improve your situation. Cut out unnecessary expenses and only spend money on things that will make you more money. And again, I mentioned this in a previous slide, but find ways to create time. So even though you can't buy a private jet or have somebody drive you around in a Bentley just yet, you could hire a maid or buy a car or multitask, do whatever it takes to create more time for yourself. And then you want to use that time to learn new things, to meet new people who can help you. So another thing you want to do is start developing a way to get paid for what you know instead of what you do. So whether that's consulting or creating a course or creating an app that you're going to charge people for, whatever it is, right? You don't have to completely knock it out of the park the first time, but just start thinking about ways that you could potentially get paid for what you know instead of the time you spend working. So the last thing that really helped me overcome some of these mental roadblocks is learn to not only accept but actually seek out failure. And the reason I say that is because the most successful people have already failed more times than you have even tried. So if you want to catch up, the only way is to go knock out those failures so you can learn from them and move on to what's actually going to work for you. So here's some bullshit that you need to know about money. It's just kind of some random facts that I put together here, but I think they'll help you have a different perspective on money, what it is, and how to use it. First thing I want to say is that Inflation is unprecedented. It's never been higher. The dollar has lost over 90% of its value since it's been created. And I'm just estimating here, don't quote me on that, but it's something like 90% of the value has been lost since the dollar has been created. Remember what I said, if you save money, the longer you save it, the less it's worth. It's a very simple concept called inflation. If you're unfamiliar with it, I highly recommend figuring out what's going on with inflation. Another thing is fractional reserve banking lets banks 10x your deposit. I actually think it might be 9x, but basically the way it works is every time you deposit $1 into the bank can then loan out $9. And they get interest. They not only get the $9 back from your $1, but they get interest on those loans. So that's why I'm saying banks 10x the money that you deposit there, creating money out of thin air, basically. So what I want to point out is, shouldn't your money be working for you instead of working for the bank? It can't work for you if it's in the bank. I mean, they might give you 1 or 2% interest a year, but there's definitely other places you could put your money where it will work for you. So the government says inflation is good for you and that it's under control. But basic math says otherwise. It's the simple law of supply and demand. The more of something there is, the less it's worth. The less of something there is, the more it's worth. Like gold, for example. The reason gold is so valuable is because there's a limited amount of it. It's not easy to get. You have to go out into the hills and dig for it or pan for it in a stream to get just a little bit. So that's why it's expensive. Whereas, dirt, on the other hand, is not expensive because there's dirt everywhere. So why wouldn't the same principle apply to money? The government is printing more and more and more and more and more money every day, putting it into the economy and telling you that it's good for you. Well, it's good for them because they can print as much as they want, but I don't think it's good for you or me. So with that said, some people wonder about crypto, and here's my take on it. Crypto is filled with scams. However, the value of crypto comes from it being decentralized. And what that means is nobody can take it from you or tell you how to spend it. Can you really put a price on that? So I'm not telling you to go out and invest in crypto, especially if you know nothing about it. That's not at all what I'm saying. I'm just saying be open to other ways of accumulating value and transferring value and doing business with people, because you could wake up one day with the rate inflation is going and the state of the economy, you could wake up one day and find out that your dollar is pretty much worthless. It went from being worth what we consider a dollar now to, say you wake up tomorrow and that dollar is worth a nickel or a penny or even less than that. What would you do? Another thing about money that's kind of funny is the easier you find spending it, the easier you will find making it. And I know this firsthand because I used to be quite the tight ass and I wouldn't spend money on hardly anything. And I found it very difficult to make money when I was in that mind state. And like I said, when I switched more to an abundance mind state and spent my money a little more freely, it helped instill the fact that I knew I could get it back. Even if I spend that money, I know that I can make more, and that actually motivates me to make more. Every time I spend money, I get this feeling, oh, I got to make it back, and then I want to go make more money. So it's weird, I know, but it was kind of a hard one for me to grasp, so I wanted to put it in there. Again, I want to point out that saving money is useless. Now, obviously, I'm not saying never save money, right? If you need to buy a house, or you need to buy a car, or you need to buy like a new laptop or something, there's plenty of things that you're going to need to save money for. I'm not saying never save money. All I'm saying here is that the value of money is dropping daily, first of all, and second of all, money that you have saved can't be working for you. So obviously you need to save money sometimes, but for a long-term strategy, I would recommend putting your money somewhere where it can make you more money rather than somewhere where it's going to sit and depreciate and do nothing else. So the bottom line is the only reason a dollar has value is because people trust the government. But do they really? Remember that thing I said about you might wake up one day and find your money is worthless? Well, as far as I could tell, people's trust in the government is going downhill quickly. So just something to be aware of. Not telling you what to do with that information, just be aware of it. And finally, money only has value when you use it. It's pretty much worthless sitting in your bank account, in your checking account, or your savings account. When it's still, when it's not moving, it has no value. The value of money comes in when you spend it and get the benefit of what you spent it on. Next, I want to talk about your secret or unknown powers. These are powers that everybody on Earth has, but hardly anyone realizes it. So the first one is telepathic communication. Did that catch you off guard? Well, the truth is, you can share a thought with millions of people instantly using your phone. So while it's not directly from your brain to someone else's brain, there is only but a split-second delay from the time you think of it and type it out or record a video, and then suddenly it's public and millions of people can access it. So that is extremely close to what was known as telepathic communication in like comic books and stuff when I was growing up, right? It was a thing of the future, and now we literally have that using a little rectangle glass device that we all carry around. The next secret power I want to talk about is the hive mind. In other words, using the internet, you can access the minds of all humankind, both past and present, instantly. There's tons of information on the internet, and for the first time in history, you can access it all from the little device in your pocket. So in other words, you can access the hive mind, you can access the collective human consciousness anytime you want. The next secret power I want to talk about is mass psychological manipulation. Now, I know at first, the first time you hear it, manipulation sounds like a bad thing, right? You're thinking, well, I don't want to manipulate anybody. But what if you were manipulating them for a positive thing? What if you were trying to make them happier, help them make more money? Is that a bad thing? Well, the truth is you can manipulate the minds of the masses using social media. The big social media platforms do it every day. So does the government, so do the biggest brands who want you to spend money with them. So if this tool of mass psychological manipulation is being used against you on a daily basis, maybe it's time you start leveraging that for your own gain. So the next one is manifestation. And I'm not talking about like hippy-dippy type of stuff here or like positive affirmations. I'm saying you can literally create and manipulate reality with your actions, both on and offline. So the actions you take today affect the world you live in tomorrow. So once you understand that, you can actually manifest the world you want to live in by taking actions that better your tomorrow. The next unknown power is time bending. For example, AI can now write code for you. 5 years ago, you would need years of schooling to even know how to code, and then it would take you hours, if not days or weeks, to code, say, an app, an application, a web application or a phone application. Now you can literally type a couple sentences into AI, and it can do it all for you. So that's basically an example of how you can bend time. You could use technology to drastically reduce the time you spend on tasks. So the next secret power I want to talk about is teleportation. Sounds crazy, right? But think about it. With video calls, you can be anywhere, anytime. You can literally teleport to the other side of the world and be directly in front of somebody with video calls. The next secret power I want to mention is social engineering. In other words, using basic psychology, you can create scenarios that result in your desired outcome without anyone noticing. So a simple example of social engineering is the principle of reciprocity. And what that means is if you do a favor for somebody or you give somebody something, so the common example in psychology is giving somebody a Coke. So you might notice that when if you watch crime shows or something, when police interrogators start an interrogation, they usually offer the person they're interrogating food or a Coke or a drink or something. And The reason they do that is not to be nice. The reason they do that is because they're using the principle of reciprocity, which by human nature, when you are given something, you feel like you owe that person something, because generally in life there's somewhat equal exchange, right? You give me money, I give you something in return. So when someone gives you something for free and they don't ask for anything in return, you feel like you owe them something. So then, what do you think is going to happen when that person does ask you for something? You're going to be much more likely to say yes to what they're asking you because you feel like you owe them something because they gave you something for free. So that's just one example, but there are tons of examples of social engineering. I'll tell you where to find more information about that at the end of the presentation. So, I do want to point out here, there's a book called Psycho-Cybernetics. If all this stuff here that I'm talking about is eye-opening to you, if you're starting to see things in a different way, get this book if you want to learn how to leverage these powers. It's one of the most concise books I've ever read on just getting your brain to work better is the best way I can put it. So what can you do about all of this right now? Well, here's some practical advice that helped me. Maybe it'll help you, maybe not. Let me know down in the comments. But some of the things that helped me was to wake up earlier, preferably before the sun comes up. And when you do that, when you wake up, smile. The reason for that is waking up early is going to give you more time in the day, which is going to let you be more productive. And if you could beat the sun up, I don't know, for me that gives me a powerful feeling like I'm up before everybody else, like I'm ready to tackle the world, right? To watch the sun come up, you have the whole day before you, and it just really motivates me to get up early. And again, you want to force yourself to smile, even if you feel like crap. But just by forcing a smile, your subconscious is going to pick up on that, and when I do it, it makes me feel happier throughout the day. Another thing that really helped me is when someone asks, "How are you?" you respond, "Outstanding, but improving." That's going to do a few things. Again, it's going to trigger your subconscious because your brain doesn't want to make you wrong. So if you say something out loud, your brain is not going to make you look like a fool. It wants to reinforce what you say. So if someone asks, "How are you?" and you're like, "Oh, I'm feeling crappy," well, your body's going to respond to that and say, "Well, he said he's feeling crappy, but let's make him feel crappy." On the other hand, if you say "outstanding but improving," you're doing good, but you're getting better. Now, another thing that's going to do is get the attention of whoever asked you this question, right? Because they said, "How are you?" And I guarantee most of the time people say fine, good, okay. Maybe they say I'm doing great. But if you hit them with "outstanding but improving," it's just going to blow their mind. They're going to have to do a double take and think about what you just said. Well, if you're doing outstanding, how could you be... Oh, right. So these type of things you can use. These are tools you can use to train your subconscious to work more in the way you want it to. Another really simple tip that a lot of people struggle with is eat better, sleep better, dress better, and exercise more. So this one is mandatory for the simple reason that if you do these things, if you eat better, if you sleep better, if you dress better, and you exercise more, you are going to feel better about yourself. You're going to feel better about the way you look. You'll feel better about the way you feel. And again, this is going to load you up on that positive energy to live in a mindset of abundance and be less scared, less fearful, less anxiety, less frustrated. Another thing that I started doing when I started picking up on all this stuff is outwork everyone around you. Coworkers, boss, peers, etc. Be the first one to work, be the last one to leave, and try and do double the work of everyone around you. This is something I did both at my event management job and when I worked for UPS. It was a pet peeve of mine to just absolutely do more work than everybody else around me, because even if I didn't get noticed for that, even if I didn't get a raise, it just made me feel good inside to know that I was providing value for the company, for the work I was being paid to do. Another thing you should do, and I mentioned this before, is eliminate all unnecessary expenses. I'm talking about things like Netflix, soda, games, going to the bar, clubbing, whatever your thing is, whatever you're wasting money on, and you know that you could be spending that money on something more productive, just knock it off. Just cancel your Netflix subscription. If you're sitting there spending 4 hours a day staring at the TV, well, that's 4 hours you could spend learning how to stop selling your time for money, which is ultimately going to make you a happier person. Another thing that I did was replace all music and movies with audiobooks and courses. Now I love music. I spent like 10 years working in the concert industry. I toured with a band for 8 months all around the country. I love music. Um, but one thing I realized was that uh, your brain just goes with whatever you put in it. So if you're putting in music, right, and what is most music about? A lot of it's about partying, it's about going out and having fun, it's about living carefree. Well, I started thinking about it and I was like, these aren't the thoughts that are going to help me make a bunch of money. These aren't the thoughts that are going to help me be more productive. So I replaced it. I just took a break from listening to music and from watching movies, and instead I spent that time listening to audiobooks and watching courses that would actually teach me something as opposed to dumb me down, which is what I feel like a lot of music does, quite frankly. The last thing that you can start doing right now is practice turning your anger and frustration into positive action. You want to harness that energy, right? Because I don't know about you, but I get a ton of energy when I'm angry and when I'm frustrated. I can feel it building up inside me. It feels like it's going to boil over. Like, have you ever just felt like you wanted to grab someone by the throat and beat them senseless? Well, instead of doing that, try and turn that energy into positive action. It might not feel good the first couple times, but once you can harness that energy and get a positive result out of it, then suddenly getting angry and frustrated isn't so bad because, again, you can use it to get stuff done. So then what? Right? I showed you what you could do right now, but what are you going to do like in the midterm or the long term? Well, some things that I did was get a side hustle or a second job. Um, Even when I was working jobs, I had side hustles. I would deliver food for Uber Eats on my bike. When I lived in Baltimore, I would go charge those electric scooters that are all over town. I think now they have internal people doing it, but when they first launched those scooters, you could sign up on the app and get paid for each one that you charged. It would be between like $3 to $5. And I had a pickup truck, so it was easy for me to go and collect like 50 scooters a night. So 50 times $5 for a couple hours worth of work was quite a supplement to my income, and had I not gotten that side hustle, I would have missed out on that additional income. So start looking for a side hustle or a second job if money is tight. Another thing I'd recommend doing is start building an audience. Whether you do it on social media, whether you build an email list, a YouTube channel, a Twitter, a Facebook, whatever it is, start building some kind of audience. And the reason is powerful people can only help you if they know you. So to put that in perspective, before I started doing social media, before I started a YouTube channel, I knew exactly one millionaire. One of my former bosses. To be quite honest, I'm not even sure the guy was technically a millionaire. I mean, I think on paper he had like $1 million worth of assets, but I'd be shocked if he had more than, I don't know, 250 or 500,000 in cash saved. Now I don't know. I didn't know his finances personally, but just based on his behavior and the other people I've known. Now, by contrast, since I've started a YouTube channel, I have had at least 5 different people worth $1 million, some people worth much more than that, reach out to me and speak to me personally and offer me help. They've given me free products, they've coached me, and these people would have never known I existed had I not started building an audience. And if they didn't know I existed, they could not have helped me. And I'm eternally grateful for the help of some of these people who went out of their way. They didn't have to help me. I didn't have a lot of money to pay them for their help. They just wanted to help me out of the kindness of their heart. And the same thing can happen for you once you start building an audience. Another thing you should do is learn new skills. Skills like marketing, sales, SEO, copywriting, web design, AI prompting, graphic design, that sort of thing. Whatever you're into, you always want to learn new skills. And the more of these specific type of online sales skills or content skills that you can learn to help you build your audience, to help you make money, um, they're only going to get better over time. Like, you're not going to forget, just like you didn't never forget how to walk or run, you're not going to forget marketing or sales or SEO or any of these other things that you learn. Another thing you could start doing is create a digital product and try and sell it. Something like a course or a video or a song or a checklist or an ebook or an audio book, any kind of digital product that you can sell an unlimited amount of times without having to do more work. Now, there is a caveat. This probably won't work the first time, but that's why you need to get started now so that you can rack up those failures and then move on to the success. Another thing you can do is start learning about SaaS. Again, that's software as a service. So people are paying for a service, but the software is doing it. And you can start brainstorming ideas. Now, this has taken me years. I've been interested in software as a service for at least 5 years now, and I've experimented with a ton of different tools, but it really took me several years to really figure out a solid idea that would actually get me paid for something software is doing. So start thinking about it now, even if you're not going to take action on that right away. Another thing I'd recommend is finding a mentor. Now, obviously, you want to make sure that this person's not a bullshitter. You want to find someone who has actually done what you want to do and is willing to help you do it. There's plenty of people out there, and again, they're not going to know you exist if you don't start building an audience. Another thing that I did and I found tremendously useful is disassociate from your loser friends and make new successful ones. Because if you're hanging around people that are a lower, whatever you want to call it, a lower pay grade, a lower class, a lower motivation, lower drive, lower goals, you're more likely to get brought down to their level. Whereas if you hang out with people who are more successful than you, people who are doing the things that you want to do, you're more likely to get pulled up to their level than to drop further away from them the more time you spend around them. Another thing I did, now this is controversial, you might not want to do this, but I started telling people about my crazy goals. I just started saying out loud at work, around my family, hey, I want to make money online. I want to make $1 million online. I want to make $10 million online. And plenty of people laughed at me, but if people laugh at your goals, cut them off immediately. You don't need that kind of energy in your life. That's not going to help you become more successful, having people laugh at you, make fun of you. So, I mean, there's like really close friends I had, even some family members who, when I would talk about making money online, they would just roll their eyes as if I was crazy, as if I was an alien. But if I let that stop me, then I wouldn't be where I am today, which is driving around the country, doing whatever I want all day, getting paid for my ideas and the things I create instead of my time. So the last thing here is take more risks with your money. It's going to hurt, but you will learn faster. Now, don't necessarily do this right away. If money's super tight, obviously you need to take care of your bills. I'm not saying go out and, go to Vegas and put it all on black. What I'm saying is start experimenting, right? We've talked about some of these things, creating a digital product, learning about SaaS, taking courses, right? Some of that stuff costs money, and you're going to have to take risks because you don't know what you're doing. You're going to have to learn. So the best way to learn is by experience. So just dive in, take a little bit more risk with your money, and you might get burned a few times, but again, we want to seek out these failures as quickly as possible so we can get them over with and get them out of the way. So taking a little bit more risk with your money is a great way to do that. So here I have some more resources for you. If you want to learn more about where I got a lot of this information and get more details about it, these are books I recommend. Some of my favorite books. I think all of these books, maybe with the exception of one or two, I've read or listened to at least 10 times. So here are the books. Psycho-Cybernetics by Maxwell Maltz. This is kind of the classic OG in the self-help niche. But from my experience, it's not so much self-help. It's not like just motivational type of content. This is really an in-depth dive into the psychology of how your brain works, specifically your subconscious mind, and how you can use your conscious mind to program your subconscious mind so that when your subconscious mind is operating on autopilot, it's actually doing what you want and moving you closer to your goals. The next one, this might be my very favorite book on this list, See You at the Top by Zig Ziglar. Zig Ziglar is a very well-known salesperson and motivational speaker, and from the sound of his voice, I think he used to be a preacher too, some kind of pastor as well. But ultimately, this book is just one of the most common sense books that I have ever read on how to stay positive, how to make more sales, and just basically be a person that you are proud to be, and how to wake up with a smile on your face every single day. Another one is Eat That Frog by Brian Tracy, and the basic concept of this is to do the hardest thing that you have to do in a given day. Do that thing first. Eat the frog is what he calls it. But again, Brian Tracy is another phenomenal salesman, motivational speaker, self-help type of guy, and I just find his content absolutely thrilling and jam-packed full of information that's going to help you make more money and live a happier life. So this one is a little bit in a different vein, The Art of Human Hacking, Social Engineering by Christopher Hadnagy. So Christopher Hadnagy is what you would call a penetration tester, and which is someone who basically companies hire to test their security, both their digital and their physical security. So like a company will hire him to try and hack into their system, or to break into their warehouse, or to steal sensitive documents. And so what he explains in this book, The Art of Human Hacking, is that humans are much easier to hack than computers, and you can do it using basic psychology. I gave you a short example of that earlier with reciprocity, but this book is packed with dozens, if not hundreds, of these psychological tricks that you can use to get your way with other people. In other words, manipulate them. So this is just a tool. Whether you use this for good or bad is up to you. I'm not telling you to go around manipulating and taking advantage of people, but there are some very powerful psychological tools in this book that you can use to, again, just get your way more often. The next one is Be Obsessed or Be Average by Grant Cardone, and this book basically, Grant explains how he achieves success by obsessing over it and not letting anything get in his way, because there's a huge difference between average people and successful people. And as Grant Cardone explains, it's because the successful people are completely obsessed with their goals and getting what they want out of life versus being average. Very powerful book, really opened up my eyes to a whole new way of thinking about not just life but sales and convincing people to buy stuff. Just another very powerful book. So the next one on the list is Crushing It by Gary Vaynerchuk, another really popular business guy, especially in the social media scene. The reason I love this book, Crushing It, is because he makes extremely practical examples of how virtually anybody in any niche at any age can start crushing it on social media. Just some really basic strategies on how to provide value, how to build an audience, and then how to actually monetize that audience and turn it into money. So beneath that one is Expert Secrets by Russell Brunson. He actually has a trilogy of secrets. The next one I think is called Traffic Secrets, and then there's a third book, I can't remember what it's called. But this book does a great job of explaining how to build an audience by telling your story, and how to tell your story in a way that elicits people to spend money with you, how to arrange your story, how to create websites, and basically turn your story into a system that sells your products on autopilot. Another book I really like is Unleash the Power Within by Tony Robbins. For a long time, I kind of thought this guy was a little out there. I thought some of the things he said sounded a little crazy to me, but eventually I checked out his book, and I have to say that after listening to the entire audiobook, Tony Robbins absolutely is onto something. He knows what he's talking about, and he does a really great job of, again, showing you how to take control of your mind and get better results. Kind of like psycho-cybernetics, but Unleash the Power Within is kind of a more modern, updated version. Psycho-cybernetics, I believe, is a pretty old book. I don't know the exact dates on this, but Unleash the Power Within is a much more modernized version of kind of the same thing, basically just different psychological tools you can use both on yourself and other people to get better results from your thinking. Another one, super popular book, $100 Million Offers by Alex Hormozy. This is just straightforward business advice on how to make more money selling stuff, is the best way I can put it. Um, One thing that Alex stresses in this book is you want to make offers that are so good that people feel stupid saying no to them. So um, that's how he was able to grow many large companies to astronomical numbers very quickly by making offers that people felt stupid saying no to. So the last one here is kind of different than the rest. The last one is Dear America by Carl Hess. And basically it's just kind of an alternative take on politics and how corruption has gone rampant. And Carl Hess he went through all sides of the political spectrum when he was young. He was quite liberal, I think, on the far radical left, and then he got so tired of that he actually went to the far right with the Republicans, and then he got fed up with that and became a libertarian, or a basically just someone who is tired of government corruption and wants to live his life the way he sees fit without bothering anybody. And I just thought that in this book, Dear America, he does an excellent job of breaking down how the country got to the way it is, how the government got so corrupt, how that affects us in our everyday lives, and just some practical common sense steps you can take to kind of remove yourself as much as possible from the system while still enjoying the luxuries of modern day life. So a little bit different than the rest of the books here, but I found it super interesting. Check it out. Let me know what you think in the comments if you do actually take the time to read it. So last thing I want to say here is, do you need some help with any of this? If you do, I have a very informal membership where I share everything I can think of that will help you on your journey towards independence and abundance. It currently hosts every course I've ever created about making money online. I think it's 5 of them in there. Plus, I upload new videos every week, almost every week. It's not on a religious schedule. It's not like every Monday a new video comes out. I try to focus on quality more than quantity, so pretty much whenever I learn something new, I make a new video about it. I try and do that every week, but if I miss one, don't sue me. It's a super inexpensive membership. I don't want your money. What I want is to help you achieve independence and abundance. And the only reason I charge for this is because I only want to interact with people who are serious about changing their future. So we also have a private Discord group where you can ask me questions directly. And you can also collaborate with other like-minded people who are also actively working to break free of the corrupt system and take full control and responsibility for their lives. It's less like school and more like an Ocean's 11 secret meeting. If you've ever seen that movie, it's where a bunch of guys team up to rob a casino. So that's basically what I'm trying to do with this group, only the casino is the corrupt system that has us all working our lives away for hourly wages that don't seem to pay the bills. So if you want to check that out, it's at profitpassively.com. I can't wait to see you inside the membership. And if nothing else, if you do nothing that I showed you in this video, please just leave a comment below. Let me know what you thought of it. Let me know if you want me to make more of this type of content, or if you're like, James, I hated that. Please go back to making software tutorials and tell me how to make money online. I don't care about the way you think. Whatever it is, let me know down in the comments. Just want to do something a little bit different here today, and I really hope that this can help at least one person overcome at least one mental roadblock, because a lot of these things had me hung up for a long time, several years. So now that I've kind of figured some of them out, I want to pass it along to you to save you time, and I hope it helps you make more money. So that's all I got for you with this video. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to click the thumbs up. If you want to see more of my content in the future, click the red subscribe button down below. If you want to make sure you see the content right away, click the bell icon, which will give you notifications every time I put out a new video. And other than that, I hope you have a great day, and I hope you are able to overcome any mental roadblocks that you might be experiencing. Take it easy, everybody.